Manufacturers of sprouted grain products, that is, seeds of grasses or grains that have been sprouted to allow the seeds to germinate into small plants. They claim that foods made of those sprouted seeds, like breads or rolls, are somehow healthier than breads or rolls made from unsprouted seeds. They make claims such as a reduced potential for some of the adverse effects of grains, or increased benefits, or even somehow magical properties are conferred. How much of this is true? Well, to get your arms around these issues, we have to understand that there's a common logical fallacy, a common defect in logic followed by these sorts of arguments. And by the way, if you understand this common logical fallacy, you'll understand why so much is wrong in the world of nutrition. And it's a very basic sequence, and that is this. If you replace something bad with something that is less bad, and there's an apparent benefit, health benefit, the false logic used is the less bad thing must therefore be good. Okay? Let's take the issue of cigarettes, an example I've used in my books. If you take full tar unfiltered cigarettes, bad, right? Replace them with low tar filtered cigarettes, and there's an apparent benefit, let's say a slight reduction in lung cancer and heart disease, then by the logic used in nutrition, smoking a lot of low-tar filtered cigarettes must therefore be good, right? Which obviously is ridiculous. In the world of nutrition, a common way this false logic is applied is let's take white flour products, bad, I think we'd all agree that they're not good for you, and replace them with something less bad, whole grain products, and there's an apparent health benefit, and indeed there is. There's less heart disease, less colon cancer, less type 2 diabetes, and less weight gain. By the logic used in nutrition studies, by most dietitians, by the U.S. dietary guidelines, by the USDA and other agencies, is that a whole bunch of the less bad thing, whole grains, must therefore be good. But I would argue that let's take that argument further and let's replace it with none of the bad things, that is, no grains whatsoever. Those studies have been performed. It's not like we don't have any evidence here. What happens when you take grains out entirely and replace them not with licorice and jelly beans and soda pop, but replace them with real food, avocado, meats, vegetables, nuts, fruits. What happens when we replace all grains with healthy foods? Then all kinds of great stuff happens. Your blood sugar drops. Insulin resistance reverses. The hemoglobin A1C value, that reflects long-term blood sugars, plummet. Triglycerides drop. Fatty liver reverses. Many, if not most, type 2 diabetics become non-diabetic. You lose a substantial quantity of weight, particularly in visceral fat. Small LDL particles that cause heart disease plummet. Migraine headaches recede or go away in many people. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease and irritable bowel syndrome recede in the majority of people. In other words, there's a whole range, a whole landscape of change in diet that you won't appreciate if you simply go through this false logic of replacing something bad, white flour products, with something less bad, whole grains. So now, let's talk about sprouted grains. What happens when you sprout the grain? Well, there are indeed changes in the composition of the seed and plant now. One of the changes is that the carbohydrates of grains, typically the amylopectin, that's the stuff that's responsible for extravagant rise in blood sugar when you consume anything made of grains. Well, the amylopectin is converted to sucrose, sugar like table sugar, glucose and fructose. So amylopectin, a carbohydrate, is converted to simple sugars. That's not good, right? But that's what sprouting does. Another not-so-good change is the quantity of prebiotic fibers present. Prebiotic fibers are the most important fibers of all, and the discovery of prebiotic fibers, that is, fibers that you can ingest but cannot digest because you lack the enzymatic machinery to break down these fibers. These prebiotic fibers feed bacteria. And those bacteria do all kinds of wonderful things with these prebiotic fibers that, for instance, mediate reductions in blood sugar, blood pressure, insulin resistance, better bowel habits, intestinal healing, and many other beneficial effects. Well, when you sprout the seed, the quantity of prebiotic fibers is often reduced. So the one thing that makes grains not so bad after all, to a limited degree, is that they contain prebiotic fibers. Sprouting reduces prebiotic fibers. Now, there are some positive changes in sprouted grains, such as a reduction in phytates. Phytates are this compound that block positively charged minerals in your gut. So when you consume anything made of grains, including sprouted grains, it binds most of the iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium, manganese, copper, and other positively charged minerals in your gut, and you pass it out in the toilet. Well, sprouting reduces the content of phytates a little bit. Sprouting also reduces the content of something called wheat germ agglutinin. Not gluten, but wheat germ agglutinin. It's called agglutinin because when this compound is exposed to human blood, it causes clotting or agglutination. Okay, so wheat germ agglutinin is modestly reduced in content when you sprout the seed, but it's still there. The gliadin protein of wheat and related proteins in other grains is also reduced in content, sometimes broken down, but it's still there. It's largely still there. That is, the quantity of reduction is modest. Most of the gliadin still remains. And that's still there to do such things as have opioid effects on the brain, like appetite stimulation, depression, stimulation of paranoia in people with paranoid schizophrenia, provocation of 24-hour-a-day food obsessions in people with who are prone to bulimia and binge eating disorder. In other words, in a lot of regards, sprouted grains can be made worse by conversion to sugars and reduction of prebiotic fibers, but there are some improvements also. But you now know that less bad is not necessarily the same as good, right? So we take something bad, whole grains, sprout them, convert them to something maybe, or it's arguable whether it is really less bad, but let's accept for sake of argument, less bad. And if there's an apparent benefit, which by the way has never been shown, but if there is an apparent benefit because of the reduction, say, in phytates and wheat germ agglutinin, you cannot conclude that a lot of the less bad thing must therefore be good. So bear in mind this sequence of logic that replacing something bad with something less bad underlies so many of the misleading, bogus concepts in nutrition. And always ask, well, how about we replace it entirely? That is, remove it, and replace it with truly healthy foods, foods that have served human needs for the last 3.5 million years, not something concocted by a big food company 30 years ago, or that the USDA and other agencies fell for because of the junk science that's been published over the last several decades. So the whole message here, in all the things I do and talk about, is clarity in thought and trying to get at the bottom of these issues so that you are properly empowered to regain health and do so without the doctor, do so without the healthcare system. And you know what? The results that you can obtain on your own, given clarity and better answers, is not almost as good as what the doctor and healthcare system provides. The health you achieve on your own, given the right tools and information, is dramatically superior to the kind of health you get from the doctor's office or the healthcare system.